Let me share some housekeeping rules. So this session is basically conducted in a hybrid manner. So we have speakers who have joined us in person, and we have speakers who have joined us online. The conference as well as the session is going live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. So to begin the discussion, I would request our speaker, Dr. Hassan Daud Butt, for sharing opening remarks. Over to you, Dr. Hassan.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all our participants here and also to our online colleagues from Australia to, I can see a colleague from Australia and also from China, I guess. So thank you very much. I think we are, or let me just begin with a timeless Chinese proverb. If you want 1 year of prosperity, grow grain. If you want 10 years of prosperity, grow trees. And if you want 100 years of prosperity, grow the right human resource. So this wisdom, I believe, captures the spirit of our discussion today, and the true transformation requires, I believe, and I've always been saying this, it requires foresight, patience, and purpose. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what the Belt and Road Initiative is all about. It represents a long-term vision grounded in pragmatism, partnership, and collective will of nations to act beyond borders. I wish to therefore thank SDPI for convening this government, academia, private sector, civil society's interaction, because for me, I believe sustainability is like development itself. It is a shared journey and not a solitary pursuit. So we all have to work together. We all have to put our 2 cents into this. We meet at a time of profound uncertainty, and this for the younger generation will be more challenging, not just in terms of sustainability, but it is an existential problem now. Geopolitical fragmentation, debt distress, and widening climate gap have eroded trust in global order, at least my trust in global order. Many nations are turning inward, pursuing short-term fixes at the expense of long-term resilience. Across, and this is my point for some of the local initiatives we are taking, and I'm sometimes very surprised by the changing in data set every year, because that data set erodes the confidence of investors and everyone who wants to work. So therefore, this conference and this discussion roundtable is very, very important, because it sets the tone for what we will see in coming future. Therefore, across the world, we are witnessing the consequence of unbalanced greening, ambitious renewable target without supporting grid systems, solar panels piling up as electronic waste, and the rush to decarbonize leading towards, paradoxically, to new dependencies on imported technologies, rare earths, and financing. So we are hearing all this now. So unless we play responsibly, unless we play pragmatically, this greening, as to say, or bluing of the economy may at one day cause an impact which may not be sustainable. Not because it may create waste, but because something good, very good for human nature may be disturbed. This greening of economy, this greening of BRI is extremely important, but it will remain important if our planning is in the right direction, because China has set its tone. China is doing what it has to do as a responsible country. Whether we are planning in the right direction, whether we are moving in the direction, we will see during the discourse of this discussion that we have. So therefore, I believe, ladies and gentlemen, that the world is learning, sometimes painfully, that green growth cannot be achieved through slogans and mere rhetoric. We need action. We need pure, genuine action. It does not mean that one day you say Heidel is green and the second day you say it creates ecological problem. You have to set your targets. You have to set your method to what you're going. And in this climate and in this environment, BRI stands, for me at least, as one of the few global platforms still championing cooperation over competition. Yet, its next phase may evolve with some constraint because of the protectionist approach that countries are taking. And whatever we talk, whatever we do, especially in terms of development sector, especially in terms of investment, of course, near-shoring and friendly shoring is happening. But it will be under an umbrella of the protectionist approach that we are seeing, especially from the West. Therefore, the next phase of CPEC, next phase of BRI must evolve with realism and restraint. High quality development as envisioned by President Xi Jinping means doing the right project first. Those that are bankable, doable, inclusive, and environmentally sound. The goal is not to build more, but to build better. A better world where all of us can survive. And that distinction between scale and sustainability, ladies and gentlemen, will define the future credibility of BRI, future credibility of CPEC, or any such initiative that we are doing. China's own journey, ladies and gentlemen, demonstrate what disciplined transformation looks like. It is not just about transition and transformation. It is moving that step in the right direction in a disciplined way. Unless we do not have discipline and we talk about division of ideas and thoughts based on where we are and who we are, we will not go there. So therefore, policy consistency and institutional coordination is extremely, extremely vital. And I'm glad that SDPI has been the torchbearer of Green BRI. It's been a torchbearer of greening and inclusive development of our overall society. In 2024, ladies and gentlemen, and I keep saying this everywhere I go, wherever I talk of sustainability, China achieved a 1% reduction in CO2 emission, even and despite the fact that its economy is growing. Solar capacity surpassed 600 gigawatt and wind power around 430 gigawatts. These milestones were built on grid modernization, storage expansion, and industrial integration. So the ecosystem has to be integrated, industry, planning. And I believe that planning is as good as its implementation. So if the cycle is based on election to election, then I do not think it is in planning. And it is not, because greening of anything, greening of the society, greening of industrialization is about 10 years and more feet. Therefore, if we hide behind political economy, then we will never be able to achieve the result, and we'll keep talking about it. So therefore, I think for Pakistan, this shift is not just about clean energy. It is about economic survival and sovereignty, ladies and gentlemen. And this is very important for youngsters to understand, because as we speak, our energy, most of our energy sources are imported. And that is a security challenge in the environment that we are living in. And unless we use indigenous sources, and greening of energy is an indigenous. God has blessed us with sunshine. God has blessed us with a lot of water, wind. We have wind corridors, and we need to harness that. And of course, a country like Pakistan, developing country, does not have that resources. So how to, create that enabling factor or enabling or pull factor where investment from countries can come. And this can happen through the platform of Belt and Road Initiative. We have, alhamdulillah, through CPEC, we've got about 6,000 megawatt of energy. We have about 800 kilometers of transmission line. I am right now working on several projects, including Suki Kanari, Dasu, Momin. So by 2027, we should have enough hydel energy to support overall growth of Pakistan. But do we want more? Yes. If you want more industrialization in country, you want more energy. So this theory around enough energy, less energy, more energy has to be linked or integrated with the industrialization of your country. We cannot put people on free jobs and free food. We have to have them placed in a respectable industrial setup where they can work, and produce. And that would also address, and I'm sure Amit Sharif Shah is an expert on this, will speak about deficits that we have. So this energy, the greening of energy, is so important for our economy and for economies of the developing country. And I'm so grateful and thankful to the government of China for being there in 2013, for being there now when Pakistan needs it, not just in terms of energy, but also greening of the agriculture sector. Because although it's about green products, but how do we use that? The energy we use in agriculture sector, the produces, the farm to the infrastructure between farm to market, all this has to be within a system where this transition, grappling with pollution, limited fiscal space, and weaker environmental enforcement has to be worked. So we have to navigate through these challenges. And do we have the right human resource? Yes, we have, and we can build more amongst friends and through discussions like this. But we must remember banks financing projects are profit and profit seeking entities. So how do we transform this? How do we make these projects environmentally friendly and also profitable is very important. As an investor, I look for profit. Of course, I am responsible for ESG, but profit at the given time. So therefore, I would take this opportunity to give my roadmap in 4 areas: measure, monitor, improve, and sustain. As I said, this data set should not keep on changing each year, because an investor, when he invests in Pakistan, he looks at 10 years or more for investment. So therefore, we should measure what we have. ये हम ना, मैं उर्दू में बोलता हूँ, ये ना कहें कि हमारे पास इतना सोना है, इतना कोयला है, without proven reserves, because that creates a bad narrative for what we're doing. हमारे पास इतनी विंड है, हमारे पास इतना पानी है, हमारे पास हमारे इंडस रिवर 50,000 मेगावाट बना सकते हैं. क्या रिसर्च हुई है इस पे? और अगर रिसर्च हुई है तो उसको पब्लिक करें, सो दैट इंस्टीट्यूशंस लाइक एसडीपीआई, colleagues like who are sitting here, can do their research which is credible and can be bankable for making money by the investors. So I would end by saying that the path forward is to localize green industries, develop recycling infrastructure, and invest in people, ensuring that renewable energy becomes a source of jobs and not just electricity. Our country needs jobs, and this can only happen through sustainable industrialization. And what do we need to learn? Just learn from President Xi's Global Development Initiative. At least read that for once. And then link your resources with countries like from Africa, Latin America, and because economic sustainability, environmental integrity, and social inclusivity is the need of the hour. And I would just end that the winds of change are indeed blowing, and that the question always in front of me as a professor of a university, and I keep saying this to my student, whether you want to build walls or you want to build windmills will depend on your leadership, will depend on the will of the people and the pragmatism of both. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Hassan, for setting up again a very perfect pitch and what we really need to do. And thank you, Dr. Hassan, for also highlighting the key steps that we really need to take going forward: the measure, monitor, improve, and then setting. Again, this consistency, the right set of figures, that's again really important. And also, I'll also kind of take Dr. Hassan's address and pick some pointers while taking a debate forward, including the point around the green industrialization, green economy, and how we can actually delve into those angles. But before that, let me kind of very briefly set the agenda. And again, let me also take this opportunity to welcome the colleagues from Pakistan China Institute, who are the co-organizers of this session along with IGDP. Mustafa Saab unfortunately had to travel to China yesterday night, so he couldn't join. And our coordinator to Prime Minister would be joining us shortly. She's actually had a parliament session, so she'll be joining us online. But along with them, we are very pleased to have with us Mr. Hamid Sharif. He's the president of Global Think Tank Network, GTTN, and also the former managing director of Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank. Thank you, Hamid Saab, for joining us today. And before we actually go into the panel discussion and we actually will be going into two different themes. One would be around the green industrialization, where SDPI would also like to present one of its studies that would be presented by Dr. Hina Aslam under the SGAIN project, and also the comments around this point also from Ms. Human from IGDP as well. And again, as we go further, Ms. Human will also be touching upon two other points as well. And then definitely Dr. Ying, he's from Boston University. He's also joined us. But before we go into deep dive into the technical presentation, let me request if Hamid Saab, if you at the very start you would like to share any points from your end, and then we'll go to the panel discussion again as well.
Thank you very much. Let me first congratulate SDPI on putting together this discussion and panel. And of course, it's always good to have friends on the panel. So good to see Dr. Hassan and my former colleague from ADB, Ing Chan, online. Ing Chan, I really wish if you were here, you know, there's a second panel we're on. It would have been wonderful to have you here. I hope you can make it next time. Let me just say that I don't want to talk about this subject at 40,000 feet, you know, talk about generalities and, you know, we should do this, we should do that. But I'd like to really focus on a couple of very concrete issues and concrete solutions which we may want to focus on. So the two issues which are staring us in the face, anyone from Lahore here? Well, I mean, we all go to Lahore, and Lahore is going to be from now until about March, pretty much unlivable. You know, it's consistently in the top 5 or top 10 of the most polluted cities in the world. And many of our cities, whether it's Gujranwala, Sialkot, etc., are not far behind. So we have a very serious problem. And Islamabad is getting the effects of that. Islamabad is not as clean in terms of its air as it used to be. Secondly, as you would have noticed in 2022 and this year, we've had exceptional flooding. Now, all of that is to do with climate change, and part of that is to do with glacial melt. Now, there are lots of scientific studies telling us that glacial melt is going on. So climate change is upon us and is having very, very bad adverse effects. And if you think through what this means for water, we're having flooding now, and maybe that flooding will continue in the next 10, 15, 20 years. But after that, if glacial melt actually does happen on the scale which some people predict, we will then have droughts. We will have no water. This will have devastating effects on our agriculture and urban living, etc. But there are solutions, I think, which are staring us in the face. Now, if you look at Lahore, we've actually, because of our poor economic situation, has effectively de-industrialized. So it's not like, where China, when I moved to China in 2012, there was a lot of pollution compared to today. And that's because, in Beijing and around Beijing, in Henan province, there's a lot of industry. In Pakistan, there's not a lot of industry. We're not exporting very much. So where is that pollution coming from? I would hazard to guess that a lot of it is coming from vehicles, right? In Beijing in 2014, there was a study which indicated that about 23% of pollution in Beijing was from vehicles. A 2010 study relating to Lahore shows that 36% of the pollution in Lahore was related to vehicles. That was 2010. The number of vehicles have probably doubled or tripled since then. And I would venture to guess that probably 50% of pollution in Lahore is due to vehicles. So we need to focus on vehicles. Now, there are two things we can do. One, if you talk about green energy, well, until we go fully electric, we're burning up petrol, right? We are stuck with fossil fuels until we transition. But the fossil fuels in Pakistan are extremely polluting. We have decided many years ago with the Ministry of Petroleum that Pakistan will shift to Euro 5. We're not at Euro 5. Our, we can control what is being imported, that we do require it to be Euro 5, but the domestic refineries have still not shifted to Euro 5. And the regulator, OGRA, seems to have done nothing about it, right? We also know when you go and buy your petrol that it is adulterated. And that's why you get those horrible fumes coming off buses and trucks. No one is doing anything about it. It is an open secret that we have absolutely third-rate smuggling of diesel and petrol from Iran. No one is doing anything about it. So there is low-hanging fruit. And I know, I wish if the minister was here, I wanted to say this in her presence, to say her ministry, as a climate change ministry, should be actually raising the flag on this and getting the other parts of government to address these issues. These are very soluble issues if we want to solve them. And I'm sure there are vested lobbies. I'm sure domestic refineries don't want to move to Euro 5 for whatever reason. We have smuggling, mafias, they need to be looked at. So one aspect is dealing with the quality of fossil fuel. Looking ahead in terms of greening the BRI, of course, we've got the electric vehicle revolution happening already. And associated with that is green energy, especially solar. So what can Pakistan do in that respect? Well, first of all, the EVs which we are importing, I hope that, we're going to start building them here. We have a large population. We're not a small country. We're a big country with big demand. And we should be insisting that these EVs are manufactured here. And over time, value addition increases in Pakistan, right? Not like we had with the Japanese cars. I mean, if you buy a Toyota Corolla in Pakistan, I'm sure it's not roadworthy in England. It's the third-rate car with very poor fittings. Even what do you call it? Even the metal which they're using is much lighter than they would for a car in the UK. So I think we've been ripped off for decades, and I don't blame just the companies, but I think our bureaucrats are involved in this. There's collusion between them to give us consumers very poor products. I hope that as we go with Chinese joint ventures, this will not happen. And again, this will need vigilance on the part of consumer groups, citizens here, and parliamentarians who are supposed to represent us in parliament. But how representative they are, I won't comment on that. So we need to have greening. When we say greening of BRI, there are concrete things we can look at. Now, if you look at EVs, so one, they should be pursued, of course, made here. They, of course, have a lot of batteries. Batteries will be the new fuel. It's going to be the new petroleum. So why shouldn't batteries be made in Pakistan? Pakistan has graphene reserves, and graphene is very important in making of batteries. So we have some advantage in doing this. So as a matter of industrial policy, we should be pushing this. Now, if you want EVs to be truly green, then you don't want that their power should be coming from coal plants, right? That would defeat the very purpose. So we would want the power to come from clean energy, and we have abundance of clean energy. I think Hassan Saab mentioned that, we will in a couple of years have more hydropower, which is green. But the last 2 years have demonstrated that we have huge solar potential. People have marched with their feet and with their money to move away from the expensive electricity available through the grid to actually have their own solar plant, if you like, at home. And from that, you can charge. Now, the solar story, again, is a great story, but we've spent over $1 billion to import those. Why are they not manufactured in Pakistan? And it can be done. If you take the example of Vietnam, in 2010 or 12, there was hardly any production of solar panels in Vietnam. Today, Vietnam exports about 25 billion worth of solar panels. It is the second largest producer of solar panels after China. So if Vietnam can do it, why can't we? Right? So I think we need government policies in place which will attract Chinese solar makers to come and produce them here, either on their own or through joint ventures. And we need policies to make that happen. Sadly, we're in a very bad place because Chinese industry which has come here is hurting. We have not allowed them to take their profits out. We haven't paid them when it comes to power producers. And we need to make sure that those policies are fixed. Our own finance minister, as reported in the Dawn on Monday, said, well, FDI needs that we have to win the confidence of investors, implying that we don't have confidence of investors. So we need policies which convince investors that Pakistan is a safe place to invest in. That means we need policy consistency. So for solar, for example, one of the important things is that how you buy the solar from households. Sadly, as we speak, there is a proposal from the Central Purchasing Power Authority, which is the purchaser of power in Pakistan, to NEPRA to say, cut the feed-in tariff by half. So those people who are selling extra electricity from their homes into the grid, cut the rate of that. Now, that will have a huge impact on the incentives to install solar. So solar farms, which we have not done so far and which have tremendous potential for that. Irradiance levels, for example, in Balochistan are some of the highest in the world. It's the most ideal place. Southern Punjab and Balochistan is ideal for solar farms, and yet we don't have them. So if you look at the example of other countries, they have achieved this because of consistent policies, investor-friendly policies, which I think we have been really wanting in. I think the sort of policies which we would require is, for example, when Vietnam did this, they offered very cheap land. So, for example, we have SEZs now under BRI. There are SEZs which have been designated. Why can't we, similarly designate places where give land on lease at a very cheap price to those who want to put up solar? Give them 10-year tax holidays. Similar, and so they can not only put up the solar parks, but if in the SEZs, why not have production facilities for panels? And those panels, because our own internal demand is going to be huge, especially if we move towards solar farms. Not only can we meet our own needs and thereby save lots of dollars, but we can even export. There is no reason why we should not be able to export from here. So I think those are the sort of concrete green industrialization policies which we need. Let me also mention about how we can support green manufacturing. If I'm a producer sitting in, say, Faisalabad or Lahore, and I want to get cheap hydel power from KP, or someone has put up a solar farm in South Punjab, how do I get that? Well, today we don't have the policies which make that possible. I cannot do a direct power purchase agreement with a power producer and get that power at affordable rates. There is a wheeling policy, but it's a wheeling policy which punishes the purchaser by saying, well, you have to pay for all the inefficiencies of the government of Pakistan because it couldn't get its act together and put in the right policies. And because now we have these huge capacity payments, you have to pay them. That is a ridiculous proposition. So we need policies which allow industrial manufacturers to buy cheap electricity from wherever it is available through direct purchase, and you then charge them for using the transmission lines. So that's one aspect. Secondly, I think we need to put huge investment into our transmission lines. Renewable energy, especially solar, is variable. So that has technical challenges. To deal with that, we need to put into place huge investments in our transmission lines, because the sort of transmission lines we have today, which often end up in a blackout at least once every year, right? Remember when there was this blackout for about 24 hours? Well, which manufacturer wants to come in and invest in a country like this, especially when you have very expensive equipment, which may be damaged in the process because of the consequences of having that sort of a linkage. I think another takeaway from countries which have been successful in this is, and today when I say this, you may think, are you crazy? We have so much tensions with our neighbors. We have the eastern border and the western border, Iran, and we don't have great relationships here. So how can we talk about this? But I think these are temporary. I think in time, we will have to link with regional grids. So we should be linking with grid in Afghanistan, the grid even in India, in Tajikistan, China, Iran. What this will enable all these countries, it's a win-win situation for all of these countries, but it will allow them to deal with times when there is excess energy and times when they don't have energy, right? For example, if you take example of Tajikistan, Tajikistan has abundance of power in summer because it's a huge hydro. But in the winter, that all freezes up, water isn't there. They're importing electricity actually from Uzbekistan. Well, they can get it from Pakistan if we're linked, right? Because we have a lot of fossil fuel which we have to burn anyway. I mean, there's no alternative. And of course, even during winter, our solar is still producing because we are abundant in solar almost around the whole year. So linkages to regional grids is going to be part of the solution for this green industrialization, which I think BRI.
Any other points?
I will stop here, right?
That's Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Hamid Sharif Saab. And this was again the pointers that we would really like to set before we go towards the technical presentation. Again, the points that Hamid Saab had mentioned, the need for localization of the industry, and that through the support coming from the China, again, something that's really one of the very important points. And I believe we have two experts joining us. I'll firstly go to Dr. Hina Aslam. Dr. Hina Aslam is currently from the Australian National University, and she's currently a senior fellow at ANU College of Law, Governance and Policy, and also the lead point of Pakistan for the Sustainability Governance project by Dr. Ishan San at University of Bath. So Dr. Hina will firstly be taking us through the journey or the technical presentation for the localization of solar PV value chain within Pakistan, and then Ms. Human from IGDP will kind of come to also share some opportunities that are there to deploy renewable energy infrastructure and strengthen Pakistan's long-term green manufacturing under the BRI. But firstly, let me come to Dr. Hina Aslam and request the MIS team to kindly display her presentation. And if we can also turn the lights a bit low, just so the participants can see the screen better. But Dr. Hina, I believe you're very familiar with many of the stakeholders sitting over here, but yes, feel free to give a brief introduction of yourself and the presentation you'll be giving today.
Thank you so much, Ubaid. It's wonderful to be here. and pleasure to be part of this dialogue. And happy to see, of course, old colleagues, Dr. Hassan, and yourself and many others. I know that PCI is also a collaborative partner for this dialogue, and and very happy to see this initiative flourishing. And I think our presentation comes at the right time when Hamid Saab spoke about how necessary it is for the local production or localization of solar in Pakistan. So in the context of that, I'll be giving like a technical presentation, but before I delve into the details of that, I'll just start with a brief background and take you a bit, number of years, a bit nostalgic for me, but I think it's very important that we mention it here that SDPI's China Study Center has building a niche on this important issue since 2019. And that's when we actually started to talk about how important it is to have CPEC, but in the context of how important it is to develop it green. At that time, of course, everybody as a majority, and most importantly, looked at it from the economic prosperity, which is there, and rightly so. But at the same time, for the sustainable development, and of course, for the policies and the frameworks that Pakistan were designing in terms of meeting their climate commitments, it was really important to align these development priorities with green development. And so we started off with 2019, but we saw this momentum emerging with a lot of partners, governments, investors, CSOs, and partner organizations, and with a lot of policy dialogues, which were basically under the Network for Clean Energy Transition, but navigating more towards the Chinese investments, and how do we get them towards more clean and more green. At the same time, we had a lot of motivation and commitments coming up from China itself, given a lot of experience, a lot of good policies, interventions, technological development from the Chinese side. It actually brought into a lot of lesson learned, and bringing in and witnessing myself living in Beijing for 8 years, that how China has evolved and fought through all this problem throughout the years, under the concept of ecological civilization, as well as many other initiatives. I think it was really important to build CPEC as a flagship project of a green development initiative in the region under BRI. So I think we were rightly placed to actually start our journey on this. And we were quite fortunate to have a stronger engagement through collaborations, one of which is Green CPEC Alliance with PCI and Dr. Christopher, and other institutions who are actually building up and being partner organization of this initiative, along with all of you sitting here listening and really interested in this greening CPEC and greening BRI. Last year, we collaborated with University of Bath on this project of SCANE, Sustainability Governance of Chinese Investments. And that's where, along with the other countries, we are leading the Pakistan's component. And that's where I think the technical presentation comes in, of where we are with this project, how we are navigating on this project, and how we are proceeding towards the future. What are the aims and the objectives we are trying to achieve? So if we go to the next slide, Hamza. Yeah, so that's the SCAN project that I just mentioned, and it's led by University of Bath, and it's the Pakistan component is being led by SDPI moving forward. And also just to mention that I am now associated and based at Australian National University, but this remains my aspiration and motivation for my rest of my life. That's why I was always keen to stay involved in IIM, coming from the background of policy and governance space, basically. So coming back to this specific project, the overall scope of Pakistan, we are looking into two main kinds of sectors: the energy projects, for obvious reason, with the major investments of CPEC coming in the energy projects, and the transport projects, and that's linked to how we can actually bring in more green investments in transport sector. One of them was just recently highlighted in terms of EVs, batteries, and many others. Through this, we are not just engaging with all of the stakeholders and doing what we are trying to advocate for, that everything has to be developed in a greener manner, in a cleaner manner, but also we are providing research-based evidence to prove how economically and how sustainably it is, not just for the benefit of Pakistan, but also for China itself to move towards this path. And that's why through this project, we have many deliverables, which are actually a lot of engagement, a lot of advocacy through research, reports, papers, and surveys. And one of the recent survey that the team in Pakistan has done in Sindh for the renewable energy projects, and that report will be out next year. But that's just one of the kind of an overarching scope of the work that I'm describing here. Moving on to the next slide, please. So now coming to specifically when we are talking about the localization of solar, we begin by saying like how in recent years Pakistan has witnessed this solar boom, and what in the time of the need, when the electricity prices were getting higher, there were incentives and there were policies motivating for the solar installment, and especially from the residential sector, and a lot of investments and a lot of imports from China in solar. We saw this really big bang proliferation of all these solar equipment and solar technology and solar boom in Pakistan. Moving forward, please. So the three main objectives of the policy brief are, so we are looking at it from the broader perspective. One of the example that Hamid Saab just said about how Vietnam converted from one of the, the buyers to major exporters after China. So we are talking in the similar terms of how Pakistan can follow a similar path by, looking at how the localization can actually come in and benefit the society and the development priorities in Pakistan. For that, we have actually looked into what are the overall BRI trends. So we'll look into how it is, what's the trend like in other countries. And then we have also evaluated how, in the context of the policy landscape in Pakistan and the conditions and the kind of an ecosystem that we have, through which, where are the opportunities, where are the challenges, and based on that, we have provided a comprehensive policy roadmap. And I'll go on to describe what is that roadmap in the maybe the last slide I'll look into. But that's the kind of an overall objective and a vision of this research report that we have produced. Moving forward, please. So yeah, I actually asked, this is again how we are seeing the Chinese solar panel exports in Pakistan since 2017 up till today in 2025. And there's been an increasingly trend, as you can see in the graphs, along with the domestic net metered capacity to be increasing at the same time. Moving slide, please. You've skipped a slide. More. Yes. So that's why our current electricity mix is solar and solar heavy. And in the first 4 months of 2025, the solar emerged as the single largest sources of electricity, from the fifth largest just 2 years. So that's the kind of a magnitude of solar boom that we are witnessing. Moving forward, please. Next slide. So now coming to where we are seeing as China growing investments in renewables, and where is Pakistan having a missed opportunity? Because when we look at the data, so in 2024, the green energy reached its highest level, and we have got some numbers for the solar itself. It's about 11.8 billion US dollars, and waste to energy representing around 60% increase from the previous years. And that's the whole overall investment trends from China. And except for Vietnam, all the top ASEAN recipients of the Chinese solar projects generated less solar electricity than Pakistan. Yet it has attracted a comparatively limited Chinese foreign direct investment. And these are some of the figures to highlight these trends of how the Chinese growing renewable investments is moving towards, and where are we looking at the possible opportunity in the light of what we are missing at this point. Moving forward, please. Next slide. And from the investment prospect, we all know that China has been the largest investor in the energy sector of Pakistan. And we have seen almost 74% of the investment portfolio under the CPEC project itself. Moving forward, please. Next slide. And there are some key players, and very happily they are to mention that they have been involved in SDPI's vision and work through NCED. For example, Longi and the others. These are some of the key Chinese players in the space of solar PV in Pakistan. Next slide. And that is the overall map of highlighting the Chinese localization trends, where China has invested heavily in solar, in providing the solar equipment, helping the countries to localize these solar energy projects. That includes Indonesia, Malaysia, ASEAN, Kazakhstan, Egypt, Turkey, and Saudi Arabia, including some of the Pacific countries, like I mentioned, Indonesia already. Next slide. So there were some key mechanisms of how China did that. And one of the key pillars under which the Chinese do these is technology transfer and capacity building is the second one. So through joint ventures, through building programs, through different technology transfer initiatives, the Chinese institutions and partners, as well as the local collaborations in the host countries, through their policy support, through their investment incentives, they have been able to achieve this localization in their own countries with a lot of access and skilled workforce through capacity building programs at the same time. Next slide. Why do Pakistan need localization? That's where I think the point which is really important for this policy report comes out, is that we are not just looking at how we need to grow up with the economic development and the prosperity, and of course solar being one of the major driver in the renewable energy space to drive this clean energy moving forward in Pakistan, and especially in the electricity mix that we are seeing. But we also see that the imports from China has been growing and has continued to grow, which increases reliance on further imported solar equipment. And given the fiscal space of Pakistan and the economic situation and the climate vulnerabilities associated with it, which actually leads to more economic deterioration, where do we see that this localization making its space, and how it is really essential to not just import the solar panels as is, but to import this technology transfer, to import the dependence, to actually strengthen the green value of BRI in Pakistan and transform it into a greener engine for the climate resilient development in Pakistan. So that's a kind of a trend that we are seeing, and that's why we need this localization. Of course, we have a lot more details that you'll all be able to read in the research report that will be released at the COP. So, but this is just like a glimpse of where we are at and what we are doing. Next slide. Next slide, yeah. So as we see that Pakistan emerging with a lot of uptake of solar and the clean energy, and at the same time, the world's largest importer of the solar panels, we desperately need, or we have still not been able to achieve or have a concrete policy environment to support the solar manufacturing and domestic supply chains with the skilled workforce that is required in Pakistan. So we have policy and regulatory bottlenecks. That is, again, very much highlighted previously in terms of the policy gaps, economic and market constraints, and the human resource and innovation gaps. The point that Dr. Hassan already mentioned, that how we have insufficient human resources and how we need the industry, academia, to really have that linkage to support the process. And that's where we really need to invest in the human resources and the innovation gaps. Next slide, please. So yeah, it is a win-win situation and an opportunity for China and for Pakistan. Given that, I think the first and the main point and the overarching is that CPEC remains one of the flagship project of BRI, and it is the biggest opportunity for China to demonstrate that through all these channels, how it has been demonstrated in other countries as a trend of investing in green energy and local capacity building and localization of solar. So it really aligns with China's own green BRI and industrial localization goals. Next slide, please. Last but not the least, because after this discussion can go on and on, but this is a kind of a roadmap we have produced based on 5 S. And those 5 S are strategy, subsidies, standards, SEZs, and science and knowledge. And if I go by one, the strategy encompasses mostly looking at why do we need to have a longer term national solar localization strategy, which are aligned with our fiscal reforms, with our economic policy to drive this industrial growth and de-risk investment. In terms of how do we do that from the economic and incentivization purpose, needs to have the right set and the right priorities in terms of how we are allocating the subsidies with targeted taxation and tariff reforms, and also ensuring that it remains competitive and affordable for the end users. Standards play a really important role, and that's where I think we need to have national standards for the products to ensure the quality assurance, safety, and recycling protocols. At the same time, there are emerging standards which are associated with products emissions itself, which means that in upcoming years and through these years, we really need to also think of how we are manufacturing those products with the low carbon products like, the aluminum and steel and others, and how does it play a role in our import and the export strategy? Because China has already also released their own standards of the products which are applicable to all these industries, and that's actually going to impact a lot of industrial growth. So we really need to look at it from the policy side in Pakistan. Special economic zones are a missed opportunity, and has been a missed opportunity in a way that we really need to leverage the investments coming in special economic zones to attract these joint ventures, to integrate solar manufacturing clusters, to help technology transfer between peer-to-peer and as well as from industry to industry and through other channels, and also localize it in Pakistan through science and technology, innovation, joint research and development programs, collaborations, and much more. I think that is supposed to be the last slide. Just like I said, that just provides a glimpse of what is in the report, but the detailed of all the data, all the information in which we have done this job will be launched at the COP, which is the right forum at a right time talking about it. So this was all from my side. I'm very pleased to be here and very happy to be able to answer any questions if you have any. Thank you so much, Ubaid, and everyone for listening.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hina, for again a very insightful discussion, a really insightful presentation on the aspects of localization of solar PV value chain in Pakistan, and really look forward to getting the final report very shortly after COP, and we'll hopefully be making it public on 14th of on the eve of 14th of November. And we'll definitely make sure to send the copy to all of you sitting here as well. So just kind of again, coming to Ms. Humin, the director and co-founder for Institute for Global Decarbonization Progress. So Ms. Humin, thank you so much for joining us. Again, also Dr. Hina has shed light on the localization point. If you could also kind of shed your perspective on how can we kind of strengthen Pakistan's long-term green manufacturing under the BRI from the work that IGDP has been doing, and your perspectives also on what has been discussed on the green industrialization part, both by Hamid Sharif Saab as well as Dr. Hina Aslam as well. So thank you so much, Ms. Humin. Over to you.
Thank you, Ubaid. I'm so honored to be here, being part of this very interesting panel discussion. Thank you very much. I have to admit before making my remarks that I have never been to Pakistan. I don't think I'm a Pakistan expert. I don't think I can make any very strong recommendation to Pakistan with my understanding. But I would just speak from my experience working in China for almost 30 years on China's energy and climate issues and the green industry development. I hope that will be something useful for the discussion, and I hope in future we could collaborate more to have some tangible research results. But my team has done research, including Pakistan, comparing different coal-intensive countries' decarbonization pathway. Unfortunately, the expert on Pakistan is not available today, but I'm very happy to be here again. So first of all, I'm so amazed by the progress that Pakistan have done in terms of, only reading the numbers in terms of your energy system, like transitioning from a more coal-intensive system to a cleaner system. That it's so amazing to see. Solar is already one of the main driver of electricity use increase, contributor. So all this progress is amazing, and we all know that China holds a very solid relationship And I myself has many Pakistan friends in fact. So it is very, a learning process for me to hear the opening remarks from the real top experts. And it's very nice to hear the old saying from China about building trees and training people. Yes, I totally agree. The practice from China has been long-term vision and moving steps with discipline and just towards the long-term direction. That was one of the key takeaway that we think China's, if we call it a success in terms of renewable energy development. Also, I was interviewed yesterday by a Singapore TV about China's desertification effort, like forestation effort. It was also like 40 years experience. It's not only, it doesn't happen overnight, all these efforts. So without more, wasting more time, I would like to just giving some, high level inputs. First of all, I think we always talk about green leapfrog. I think it's nothing new, and people may go to Pakistan talking about that too, because I heard that like 25 years ago in China, like people came to China saying, oh, you can achieve green leapfrog. What does that mean? I think we already achieve it because we do achieve the greenhouse gas peaking at more or less half of the per capita GDP level compared with some OECD countries. So I think it's possible, of course, for other countries too. So second, I think I compare with what China was in 2000, and Pakistan now. If we look at some numbers, it's very interesting. I think people might have different readings, but I would just say in the year of 2000, the year before China joining WTO, China's per capita GDP was lower than Pakistan now. Was much lower. It was Pakistan now, the per capita GDP is 1.5 times higher than China in year 2000. But on the other hand, at that time, China used 40% less electricity per capita than Pakistan now. So that means you achieve higher GDP than using less electricity. So that means your economy is already greener than China at that time. But on the other hand, the third number is very interesting, is that in year of 2000, China's secondary industry, basically, namely like manufacturing industry, accounted for 40% of the overall economy, while in Pakistan, I think the number is more or less around 25, 26, I mean, 1/4 of the economy now. So it's a different economic structure, and that set a different ground for when we are talking about green industry or green manufacturing. So basically, I think the first step will be, we need to improve the manufacturing capacity as much as possible and as diverse as possible. So, and second, I want to, point out some of the Chinese experience along the years. Not much details, but I think, so, it's important to talk about, we always talk about energy efficiency first. I know today we talk a lot about energy supply, and we talk a lot about industrial manufacturing, but overall the core is how to sustain the manufacturing capacity and industrialization with limited electricity supply. China had that experience. When we all went through, like we have a blackout maybe a couple of times a week in many cities in China, like around the year of 2000. So we have to balance that. It's it's a way China went through, and the idea was about energy efficiency. I remember around 2000 or even before 2000, we have American colleagues coming to China to learn about how China achieved this GDP growth with lower energy consumption. It's exactly the same comparison what I just made between China and Pakistan now, like Pakistan now and China 20 years ago. So energy efficiency is very critical for us to achieve this, balance between your growth and the energy system expansion. So that said, when we're talking about green industry, I think in China, the second point I want to make is standard first. So China tried to set higher standard, compare with the manufacturing capacity, using that standard to limit the entry level of industry. So when you are going to build certain industry plants, China, the investor need to invest in more efficient, manufacturing capacity or technology, so that the energy efficiency at that time could be as high as possible. Of course, we also went through the time to take over the overcapacity from the Western country. Even the factories bought equipments from Europe or the other countries. They ship all the equipment there. But at that time, they try. I mean, it wasn't so successful, but the country or the government tried to push the investors to take the high efficient capacity. So that is very important, because otherwise, how can we, achieve those kind of balance? So this is also very important. And when we talk about EV, I think that's maybe the third thing I want to mention, specific examples. The Chinese electric vehicle industry started from two-wheelers and three-wheelers, and then they grow the whole capacity of fancy cars manufacturing that you can see in the market, and even very competitive in the global market, in European market. But the time it took China many, many years to just develop the two-wheeler and three-wheelers e-mobility. And that was the beginning. And I think when we talk about pollution, right, in the big cities and the 40% of emission coming from transportation sector, that was exactly the same situation in Beijing where I live. And the electrification of transportation sector started from public sector. When it's very hard to convince private car owners to buy EVs, which were not so sophisticated at that time, and the public sector started first. So China had a program like trying to ask all the main cities to reach 100% electric buses when the technology wasn't so good. But in order to sustain this electric buses, and they did have to build the charging station invested by the public utility sector, like by government. And I think, of course, that's a very good way to use the foreign aid. So long story about EV. I think there are a lot of analysis. I wouldn't go into details. I hope we can, all talk about this. There are so many examples about, how all of this sector grow and expand, and what is the role of policy, what is the role of foreign aid, what is the role of foreign investment, what is the role of private investment, and education. So it's a whole systematic approach. So, and then the next, then the question is what is the opportunity in Pakistan to grow the green industry? As I said, I'm not a Pakistan expert. I don't think I can give any recommendations, but I see opportunity from China, within China, to diversifying, right? Diversification of manufacturing capacity for most of the green technology industry is the expectation. There is a demand from industry. I think we already seen investment in Pakistan from Chinese industry. Of course, you know better than me, but I think there is a need if we want to share this overall, capacity between two countries, at least China and Pakistan. So you already talk a lot about that. I think. But I want to say it's not only the global market. Discovering the domestic market is also very important. I know we have a different situation, but we all share the same situation that we have a comparatively big dense cities, big population compared with our territory. So even now, China's domestic market demand from EV, from solar, from air conditioning, from all this technology very necessary for the future battery, the majority of the market is from China. So China is never developing that industry for the global market. It's mainly driven by domestic market. So I would say, if I can make any suggestion, I think discovering and building the domestic demand is probably the first step. Analyzing what is the demand and analyzing how to enable this demand. It will be very important. And the demand, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Dr. Miss, if you could just kind of conclude in 1 minute, just in the interest of time. Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. So I'm going to the last point that I think just several, like green mobility, as I said, two-wheelers, and I also want to highlight the cooling sector, the air conditioning development. That's also a very important future industry, or ongoing industry. Also, China is dominating in the market too. So I think if I can make one suggestion on the market, I think we talk about what kind of incentives can make sure the investor making money in Pakistan market. I would say if it's hard to make all the policy possible, maybe we can start with incentives to support green technology sharing. So, I will conclude that I think there is possible to share the global green tech market dividend between China and Pakistan. CPEC first stage already set the ground, and I hope the next stage will see more specific and small and beautiful projects. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Human, for highlighting this perspective. So, but before coming to the final comments from Dr. Hassan and Hamid Saab, let us move to one of the very key experts. We have Dr. Ying with us. Dr. Ying, I mean, moving now beyond the industrialization point that we have been talking about, if you could just speak a bit on the BRI green initiatives and how they can kind of more closely collaborate with some of the regional efforts that have been going on. And yeah, just again, we don't really want to take a lot of, a lot of your time, but if you could kind of try to have it in like 7 to 8 minutes. Yeah, apologies for that. We're just running a bit.
Sure. Thank you very much for inviting me. I really missed the opportunity to come to Islamabad and to see certainly my friends Director Hamid and you, but I actually learned a lot from hearing from all the speakers. On the overall the question Ubed was saying that there's certainly Pakistan is not alone. I mean, certainly many countries in the region are facing the same development challenges. And also there are a lot of initiatives, either bilateral or multilateral. The only thing I wanted to mention is certainly when I was working at ADB, we have a very kind of a significant regional cooperation program called the CAREC, Central Asia Regional Economic Cooperation Program, where Pakistan is one of the important members. And then now we talk about the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. It's by itself is one of the economic corridors in that CAREC corridor map. So there are a lot of activities that are going on. So when we talk about the policy issues and implementation issues and policy, and technical issues, certainly Pakistan can also look to many other partners. However, I'd like to use some of your time to talk about something else. It's basically coming from my many years of working on regional cooperation and on the economic corridor development. One of the things we hear, there are so many things, right? Including the keywords of green leapfrogging, some other how to embrace the low carbon economy and so on and so forth. What I like to propose, more like a thinking process of how to organize so many of our thoughts, is to find a value proposition. Value proposition for example, now the challenge is how to achieve green industrialization for Pakistan. The value proposition I would like to propose is we actually need to anchor the green industry development in the economic corridor development. Is one of the integrated process. Earlier we heard issues about, for example, some of the special economic zones are not so successful. I'm not particularly sure that each individual story, but probably one of the kind of unsuccessful story is probably we didn't build the linkage of the special economic zone with the local economy, with the overall policy framework. So, so economic corridor itself can be a platform to tie all the development efforts together. The economic corridor is certainly not just communication, transportation, or even power transmission. It's a special development platform linking production clusters, markets, and people, right? So earlier we were talking about the markets, we were talking about people. So a lot of things can be coming from the economic corridor development agenda. Throughout of my sort of working different projects, I kind of trying to summarize the key elements of the economic corridor development process. I came with something called the 6 dimensions of a corridor. It's a kind of represented by a very common English words called the CAMELS, CAMELS. So it's actually resemble very well of the old Silk Road, right? So the CAMELS stands for, you probably already guessed, C is for connectivity, A is for agglomeration, M stands for markets, E for environment, L for logistics, and S for services. So all these 6 elements of economic corridor, we actually need to pay attention whenever we talk about, say, green industrialization, right? So on the connectivity side, green connectivity is the foundation of sustainable growth. So there are a lot of new technologies that are coming. I think Pakistan should embrace, for example, on the electrified railways, smart highways, and on the telecommunication side, on the digital fiber networks, and so on and so forth. So a lot of these need to be in place in order to score high for Pakistan as a market, as an investment destination for foreign investors to come. The connectivity actually moves certainly not only goods, it actually moves technology, skills, and innovation. After connectivity, we're looking at agglomeration. Agglomeration is basically quite important that you need to assemble some supply chains along your economic corridors in order to basically produce a production ecosystem. Now, the green industry is part of that. And so, we're talking about the eco-industrial parks powered by solar and wind, talking about the green manufacturing clusters for electronic vehicles and solar panels, energy storage. A lot of these needs agglomeration. Just 1 or 2 plants is probably not going to do the trick. Now, third elements of economic corridor is markets. The market is certainly the life for the corridor. is actually the engine for corridor sustainability. There are a lot of things on the market side Pakistan government and stakeholders can do. One major agenda you probably heard many times is something called the low carbon trade. Basically, we need to set up a common standard and lower tariffs on renewable products. And then in addition, you also need to look at the factor markets. For example, we need to expand the market for green finance, develop green bonds and carbon credits and blended finance. And then, so basically the market will make a link to service all the industry well. And the fourth element is the environment along the corridor. So every corridor must enhance, protect the nature. And basically all the investment should be climate resilient. And there are many such technologies, for example, smart water management, biodiversity safeguards, and so forth. And then come to the service side. On the fifth element is logistics, which by itself is the industry. I haven't checked how much of a value added of logistics industry is in Pakistan, but there are a lot of rooms to develop, particularly given the fact that CPEC is such an important economic corridor nowadays in the region. And you can also achieve a green logistics side. So electrified freight and solar rooftop, solar roofed dry ports, and digitize the custom system, and so on and so forth, other things to go. Lastly, the elements is services. Basically, the sustainable economic corridor should be people-centered. And then there are a lot of work needs to be done to look at the green skill training, promote the SME participation, ensure women's inclusion, so on and so forth, right? And so all the 6 elements, there probably be more, but if we do well along the CPEC, on the 6 dimensions, I'm pretty sure Pakistan will be a very friendly and attractive investment destination. Now, on the investment promotion side, I will quickly also mention, in addition to investment promotion, we shouldn't forget 2 other P's. One is called the provision of services to our investors, and the other one is the protection of investors' rights. So all the 3 P's will come together. There are quite a few good examples how people can do them well. So that's all my quick intervention, and go back to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ying, and apologies that we actually requested you to kind of rush to your interventions, but there were again extremely important elements that you have highlighted. Just in the interest of time, let me come if Hamid Saab have any last intervention, but Hamid Saab, just in the request of time, perhaps 2 minutes, and then we'll come to a word of thanks.
Just very, very, very quickly. I think Hu Min mentioned the role of government, and I think that's absolutely crucial. Now, the role of government in Pakistan has been a negative one in the sense that, they jacked the price of electricity so much that it pushed people to get their own panels. But I think there's also a positive role that the government now should have consistent solar policies, and it should promote, I think as we've seen in the China example, public transport. In particular, I think there's low-hanging fruit in Pakistan for converting two-wheelers into electric bikes. It's a win-win situation for consumers as well. And it's very cheap, by the way. One estimate is maybe for about less than $100, so less than 28,000 rupees, you can convert your motorcycle to electricity. And this can be a cottage industry, and you need to train, of course, people for that. And that's my last point, that none of this industrialization will take place unless the government puts massive amounts of money into vocational training. And I think that sort of training for younger people is absolutely vital. Thank you.
Thank you, Hamid Saab. So before displaying, let me come to Dr. Hassan for final concluding and sort of thanks.
Hu Min Lauscher, Ing Lauscher, Ni Hao, Ni men在北京吗？对的，好。
我在北京。
好。
Your Chinese is very good.
谢谢。Your English is very good, sir. So, yeah. So I just want to say a few things, and just bear with me for what I'm going to say. I just need 5 minutes. But, for someone like me, we we do conferences, we speak in seminars for money, for other reasons, for knowledge sharing, knowledge gaining also. But seminars like this, I must say at the end, is like oxygen for someone like me. Because what I heard in the past about 1 hour was phenomenal. And I would just like to speak about that. Madam Homin, I just want to give you a small insight because you have never been to Pakistan. So I would like to, because I have studied in Peking University, so I can give you an example where the problem lies. You know, in China, you want to develop incrementally. And Hina, I'll come to you also. You're a colleague, so I'll come to you later. In China, you want to develop incrementally, phase by phase, step by step, pragmatic leadership, will of the people, whole of government approach. In Pakistan, we want to develop exponentially, overnight. We want to have, because, you know, we live in a political economy. So politicians are at risk, people are at risk. We are not sure whether what will tomorrow's dawn bring to us. So therefore, we want to do things in haste. We want to do them quickly. Similarly, while in China, there's a great competition between provinces, great competition between mayors of different provinces in order to have research and development, in order to have more economic growth. Here, although we have something called as the 18th Amendment, it did not provide the kind of competition, but it provided the kind of headwind which was not required. So what we should learn from China, and I would request you to do your research, and SDPI and myself will be very happy to share it with you. You know, those headwinds based on, because for when an investor comes to Pakistan, he looks at 6 Pakistan, because every province has its own, you know, sort of board of investment. And whereas in China, the overarching policy remains the same, top down. But in provinces, the incentives may differ based on their location, based on their industrial setup. So I'm not saying which one is better, but both of our countries have a different approach to work. Productivity level is also a challenge. Knowledge, and Hina highlighted the academia industry linkages. In our universities, we have professors who have never invested more than 100 rupees. And they're teaching investments, you know. So this is a challenge for us. And I'm not saying all of it, I'm saying some of it. So this incremental approach versus exponential approach, I think for Pakistan and developing countries like Pakistan, because here we live in a riskier environment as opposed to a developed country. Secondly, what China does is, and I really admire that, you make development fashionable. Like it's a fashion amongst youngsters to use EV, BYD, Chang'an, some of the other great EV vehicles we have. It's very fashionable. So if you're using a very old contemporary fossil fuel driven car, everyone will look at you as if you're from Mars, you know, and it's not considered very good. Here, for us to, for government's intervention, for even making it fashionable, people look at it with a lot of skepticism. That skepticism sometimes in a political economy does not help, because the government is at risk. 5 years time, they want to do more, do it exponentially, do not think of long-term planning. You know, secondly, Dr. Ring, I mean, this camel sort of strategic system is fantastic. And I think, but here again, you know, the cultural difference comes to my mind. For example, long-term planning for China, they learned from Russia. But after, say, about 2 5-year plans, they changed their approach, brought pragmatism in their approach, because the Russian model wasn't working. So now socialism with Chinese characteristics came. Here, we are confused for overwhelmed by the Western methodology. You know, we speak English, we dress up like Western, but we are also inspired by Chinese model, which is more long-term. So whether we should have long-term planning or short-term planning, and therefore our incentives are not correct. In China, the incentives are backloaded. That means you have to pay in 10 years the amount of land. In Vietnam, it's also like that. In Cambodia, here it is front-loaded. You want to start a business? Give us 2 crore first and then you can start a business. In our ease of doing business, one window means 14 windows. So that means each window you have to move that through that. But even then, through CPEC, ladies and gentlemen, we were able to attract 28 billion US dollars in just 3 years. So that's also phenomenal. So therefore, like now coming to Hina, Hina, in your model of, how we can work from standardization to incentives to letting people make, and I'm really looking forward, please do share a signed copy of your report with me, because I'm really looking up to that. And I'm just finishing. What I need you to do is that through SDPI, share it with all the stakeholders so that we are aware on how to standardize things. Standardization in Pakistan is also a challenge. Sometimes because of political discrimination, political biases, sometimes linguistic biases, sometimes regional biases. We have so many biases. In China, they do not have. So you can't compare one model you can't compare apple with oranges, but both are fruit, both can provide nourishment, and both can provide you healthy living. That's very important. So on healthy living, I want to thank you, all of you. This was great. Hamid Chief Saab, Hina, Homin, Dr. Ying. I think this was really a treat for me, and I'm so happy that I was able to be part of this. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hassan, and thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. If we can quickly have a group photo. And yes, please.